Hi students, welcome to session 3 of Form and Movement in Animals. I welcome you to Learner's Planet, and in today's session we will learn about movement in two interesting animals, that is snail and movement in fish. So let us start with today's session and learn about movement in snail. Yes. What is snail? It is a very slow moving animal. Snails have a shell inside which they can hide to protect themselves from heat and enemies. So here is what you can see. This is the shell. This is shell. Shell protects the snail from heat and enemies. And here you can see that these are their tentacles. So these tentacles have eyes on their tips. And here is the foot. This foot is a muscular organ which is coated with a layer of mucus. So this is the foot. So this is a beautiful picture of a snail which has shell, tentacles and foot. So students, I want to ask you one thing, that when was the last time you looked at the snail closely? Yes, snails are one of those animals that we see quite often in our yards. Well, when it's raining, then. But don't tend to appreciate the sheer complexity of the way they work, because the humble snail is quite an incredible little animal, one which operates very differently than we do. Even with a drought upon us, most of us still have healthy populations of snails in our gardens. Unfortunately, the local species of snails which shares our appreciation for the plants we grow is an introduced snail, the garden snail, which is from Europe. Nevertheless, this foreign pest is still a fascinating creature in its own right. So, this is a snail, just like an earthworm, but not totally as earthworm. So, it is a very slow moving animal and it has a shell inside which it can hide to protect itself from heat and enemies. And the shell is the outer skeleton, but it is not made up of bones. And they also have a pair of tentacles that bear eyes at the tips, and the snails move using a muscular organ called the foot. So here you can see a beautiful picture of snail, and what we discussed, that it has outer skeleton, it has a pair of tentacles as well as a muscular organ called the foot. Now there is one amazing thing which is present in the foot. Let us learn about it. Yes, the foot produces a slimy substance called mucus, and the snail crawls on the layer of this mucus which is present in it. So this muscular foot produces a slimy substance. Slimy means thick, slippery liquid. Slimy means thick, slippery liquid. So this mucus is what on which the snail crawls. On the layer of the mucus it crawls, and this mucus reduces the friction between the foot and the ground or any other surface on which it crawls by offering a smoother surface to crawl on. So it becomes very easier for the snail to move on. Even the muscular foot which is present produces wave-like movements that push the snail's body forward. This is how the movement takes place in snail. and a trail of mucus is left behind when the snail crawls. This is how we can observe the movement of a snail, because a trail of mucus is left behind when it crawls. So the sticky mucus also enables the snail to crawl on the variety of surfaces. So this mucus is what enables the snail to crawl on. So this is about the snail. The first sign of movement from a snail is usually the emergence of the head, which is followed by extending the tentacle present on its tip. The land snails have two pairs of tentacles with eyes on the tips of the longest pair. And the ability to turn our eyes inside out is not something we aspire to, but it is an amazing adaptation to protect their eyes and is a great space saver. So the tentacles actually invert when they are withdrawn, just like a rubber glove being pulled back inside itself. This way the snail moves. Even as their bodies are still emerging, snails can start to move off, although as we know, this is not actually with a jolt of acceleration, but the top speed of a garden snail is around 0.048 kilometers per hour. Still, their unique method of sliding along on a single foot while releasing a bed of low friction mucus is perfect for their way of life. But it does not require a humid or wet environment to avoid drying out. So cruising this way has its advantages, and you will be very amazed to know that they can travel anywhere upside down and also over sharp objects. Now assume that if we the human beings move on the sharp object, what will happen? Obviously, we will get hurt. But a snail can slide over the edge of a razor blade without cutting itself. Wow, this is so amazing about snail. So the snail moves by creeping on a flat foot underneath the body, and the band of muscles in the foot contract and expand, and this creates a kind of rippling movement that pushes the snail forward. So the muscular foot has a special gland that produces a slimy mucus to make a slippery track. And you can often see these silvery tracks in the garden because it releases this mucus. So the slime comes out from the front and hardens when it comes into contact with air. And this is what by which the snail is able to move on very sharp pointed needles or knife or razors and vines without being injured, because the mucus-like secretion helps to protect its body. So this is what is the movement that occurs in snails. So let us now discuss about other animal. Yes, movement in fish. Students, fishes are vertebrates. Means they are the animals that have a backbone. And all vertebrates have an internal skeleton which is made up of bones, a tough elastic substance called cartilage, or both. Means all vertebrates have a skeleton which is made up of bones or cartilage, or both the bones and cartilage. You will be very amazed to know that about 510 million years ago, some of the worms on earth evolved into the earliest fish. And fish were different from worms because they had spinal cords. They had nerves running all along their backs that carried messages to their other end. None of these earliest fish survive today, but lampreys are a lot like them. lampreys. Soon after developing these spinal cords, most fish also developed vertebrae to protect their spinal cords and keep them from getting broken. And that is why today we can say that fishes are vertebrates. These early fish weren't very successful, and there don't seem to have been very many of them. But then about 420 million years ago, some fish evolved to have jaws. And the earliest kind of fish that had jaws were sharks, because their jaws turned out to be very useful. We don't know whether this was because they helped with eating or with breathing. And fish with jaws quickly became very common in Earth's oceans and rivers. So possibly the jaws and teeth, they helped these fishes with jaws to pre-digest the food so that the fish cells didn't have to do so much of work and could save their energy to do other things, because fish with jaws and teeth had more energy and they could swim faster and catch more food than older kind of fish. So some fish even have two sets of teeth, one in their jaw like ours and another set in their throat. And by about 395 million years ago, there were fish in the rivers and not just in the oceans. So these river fish were the earliest modern type fishes with bones. And some of these river fish became the ancestors of all modern fish, even the ocean fish. So one early example that is still around today is a type of fish which doesn't even have vertebrae. And by around 50 million years ago, some of these river fishes readapted to live in the oceans or partly in the oceans, like salmon fish. You must be knowing about salmon fish, right? So this is about some of the history of fishes. Now let us discuss more about fish. Let us learn more about it, its body structure. Yes, fish live in water, we all know. And most fish have a streamlined shape. Streamlined shape means the head and the tail are narrow and the middle portion of the body is broader. We'll have a look at it just after this slide. And this kind of shape, this streamlined shape in which the head and tail are narrow while the middle portion of body is broader, offers least resistance to the flow of water, so that it will make the fish easier to swim through water. So this streamlined shape is very useful for the fish to swim through water. Here you can see this body structure, the head and tail, they are narrow, while this middle portion of the body is broader. This is the shape which offers least resistance to the flow of water and makes it easier for them to swim through water. Even aeroplanes, ships and boats also have streamlined shapes. If you can observe, you can now observe these aeroplanes, ships and boats. They also have this type of shapes to reduce resistance to the flow of air or water. They got this idea from this animal only, right? So basically, fishes have fins and a flexible backbone that help them in swimming. Like most fish have a special structure called swim bladder that can be filled with air or emptied to help them to move up and down in water. So what does resistance mean over here? That they offer least resistance. Resistance means a force that stops or slows down a moving object. So it offers a least resistance to the flow of water and makes it easier, and it makes it helpful for them in swimming. So as we discussed that fishes are vertebrates, we can say that they have a flexible backbone that helps them in swimming. So here is one picture of a species of fish. They have fins. Here you can see this. They have fins which help in keeping the direction and body balance while swimming. Fins help in keeping direction and body balance while swimming. Right? While here you can see this is the tail. Right? And this tail is moved in a zigzag way to push the body forward. So fish such as sharks and rays have no bones inside their bodies, as their skeleton is entirely made up of cartilage. So this is one amazing thing about sharks and rays. Their skeleton is entirely made up of cartilage and they have no bones inside their bodies. So this is about fish. They have fins. The fins are used for movement, stability, nest building, spawning. Nest building means in water only, not like just like birds, and they have organs, other organs too. So fins can be single or paired. Many aquarium fish seen in the hobby have long drawn out fins which have been developed through selective breeding. In nature, these fins are not found. So the caudal or tail fin is used for propulsion, means fish that have such type of fins are the irregular fast swimmers, and fins that have rounded caudal fins are fish which are capable of quick action like predators. So the large elongated caudal fins are often used to attract the males. Even there are fins, the single fin is located on the underside of the body just forward of the caudal fin, and the fins serves to stabilize the fish while it is swimming, and that the fins that are moved in an undulating manner are used for propulsion, means they swim along with this fins. So these fins are very much helpful for them in swimming. There are many types of fins which help the fish to swim in water. Even the swim bladder, it is an air-filled bladder which is used for keeping the fish in a state of neutral buoyancy where they neither sink nor float. Now if we jump into water, obviously first we will sink. But have you ever gave a thought that fishes always, all the time, they live in water? So do they sink or float? No, they do not sink or float, because they have swim bladder, which is an air-filled bladder. Thus, fish are able to sleep in mid-water. And there are numerous species, they have altered swim bladders to fit their living habits. So some species can swallow the air which is passed to the swim bladder where the oxygen is extracting, and this adaptation is especially convenient in oxygen-starved waters. So this is about the movement which takes place in fishes. There are some other facts too about fishes which I want to share with you. That fishes are vertebrate animals that live in the water. As we know that vertebrate means they have a spinal cord which is surrounded by bone or a cartilage. Even fish have gills. Here I'll write it down for you. You know that fish have gills that extract oxygen from the water around them. And you will be very amazed to know that there are over 30,000 known species of fish. There are some flatfish which use camouflage to hide themselves on the ocean floor. And there is a tuna fish You might have heard about it. Tuna fish can swim at the speed of up to 70, or rather we can say this is 70 kilometer per hour, or 43, or rather we can say that 70 kilometer per hour. Then there are other facts too about fishes that relative to their body size. Fish have small brains compared to most other animals. So fish have small brains relative to their body size. Fish are covered in scales, which are often covered in a layer of slime to help their movement through water. Even there are cleaner fish which help out other fish by removing parasites and dead skin from their scales. Although jellyfish and crayfish have the word fish in their name, but they aren't actually the fish. Jellyfish and crayfish. Now they have the word fish in their names, but they aren't actually the fishes. Over 1,000 fish species are threatened by extinction. And you know about mermaids? Yes, they are not actual fishes. Mermaids are mythological creatures with the tail of a fish and the upper half of a woman, but they actually don't exist. So never think about the mermaids that they are there, and never try to find out them in water. Okay, so I hope that you understand this movement in snail as well as in fish. And I hope you enjoyed today's session. We will continue our lesson in the next session, and we will learn more about movement in other animals too. Till then, keep learning, keep enjoying. Have a nice time.